Discussion surrounding the manner in which violent crime is addressed has continued to build, with some calling for a reduction in media attention given to the subject. In a conversation with one media and communications specialist, NBC Prime examines whether a change is in fact necessary. Here is more in this Key Battalion report.
Members of Saint Lucia's media fraternity have been challenged to make changes to the degree of attention given to violent crime on island. The public sentiment is one previously expressed, which has resurged in the face of marked increases in gun-related violence.
It's getting even worse. Look at the breaking of the agreement with the trust, the breaking of a promise and the word of a government to a bona fide citizens group, which is even statutory that matter. That is unacceptable. If you look at the recent pieces of legislation that the government was trying to pass, all in one sitting, again, that is unacceptable. This is government that is ruling with I would say excessive force. We need democracy where people can debate. We need to have general citizens able to look at policies, debate on policies themselves, influence policies, and for that matter, influence legislation. Because governments don't rule in the party interest, they rule in the people's interest. And well, you know, yes, they are supposed to, Janika, and we must insist. Now, you know, invariably, the parties and various agents of government will bully us and tell us, you know, essentially we become fearful of speaking. There's no real freedom of speech because you're worried that they might hurt us, they might hurt our families, they might hurt our businesses. And that is true, they can. But that is not democratic. That is not good governance. And I think the time has come, as St. Lucians, that we put our foot down. The extension of the state of emergency that people have objected to. Why can't we object? And why can't we be heard? And why can't we be given, shall we say, a good listening ear? And let us have a debate on the issues so that the right thing can be done by the people of this country. You know, I just, and in the end of the paper, I point out that our ancestors, people, I'm a mixed race St. Lucian. But I can tell you, I have ancestors on both sides, white and black. And our ancestors that were in chattel slavery suffered and fought to overturn that oppressive system. And then we came to colonialism, which was really our new Jim Crow. And the British subjugated us with a system that called a Westminster system that they eventually gave us in our constitution. They continued the subjugation, even though their faces and colors of their skins may have changed. The concept remained what I call internal neo-colonialism. You know, so I stand with the spirits of Sir John Compton and Sir George Charles and those that have gone before, because we cannot tolerate that kind of system in our country. We need democracy. And in this COVID time, COVID has caused us to think deeply on our systems and how they can hurt us. Some people even call it the plandemic. But you know, we in St. Lucia, I'm urging St. Lucians. I'm not even talking about being of a particular political color. It does not matter. It is the one flag that we are under. We are one people. We need to know and assure that we have a democratic country, that we have control of our destiny, like Sir John Compton said so beautifully when he was arguing for independence. We need the ability to take charge and control our destiny. No, but you cannot control our destiny by a political elite who tells us what is good and right for us and then does it regardless of what we think. Because that is not controlling the destiny in a collective way. It is a political elite controlling destiny for us. That's the colonial system all over again, coming in a different form. I cannot abide by that. I'll be a traitor to the ancestors. I'll be a traitor to Sir John Compton and Sir George Charles if I agreed with that.
A few moments later.
Your words and actions influence the thinking of people. Your communications, You should be reporting non-violent communication, loving, respectful, developmental communications. Be very careful. Think about how you're affecting the psychology. Are you part of a systemic violence, or are you part of systemic love and peace?
Leader of the opposition, Philip J. Pierre, has expressed concern about the recent upsurge in violent crime on the island, which has resulted in 8 homicides in just over the span of a week. The startling death toll has taken the overall homicide rate to 55 for 2020, with just 1 day before the end of the year. 2017, with 60 confirmed homicides, remains the deadliest year on record in Saint Lucia. The count for 2020 is the second highest tally in the nation's history.
It is very concerning. It's very concerning and not very good news at all. There is nothing to rejoice about. First of all, I would like to express my condolences to the people who lost their lives, the victims who lost their lives. It's tragic to lose your life under these circumstances, even more tragic than normally. Also, for the people who are accused of committing these crimes, I hope that justice is swift and justice be served. It's a very unfortunate circumstance that our history must be broken in that way.
Pierre hinted at the need for elected and public officials to moderate on the tone of the rhetoric, not just on crime, warning of the power of the spoken word on the public psyche.
But it's time for us to reflect on what we say as leaders, on what we say in the pursuit of political office. It is time that we understand that sometimes in the heat, as leaders, we must exercise restraint in what we say, because people are listening to us and our words mean something.
Amid calls for a sound evidence-based public policy approach to crime management, Pierre believes there should be a more thoughtful articulation of thoughts in the push and pull of public discourse.
This is why it's very disconcerting when people at the highest level make statements that seem to create a level of hatred in the country. That seem to create a level of volatile behavior. And this is why I'm very concerned when we make statements that seem to be creating disharmony in the country.
While law enforcement officials report of a dramatic rise in most categories of crime, there has been a notable rise in the number of homicides. A gun attack at Sunbelt, which claimed the life of a 35-year-old labourer, bookended an 8-day period of 8 killings, which included a double homicide at Leslieland. The Christmas holiday period was also overshadowed by 3 murders.
A few moments later.
On Tuesday, Prime Minister Philip J. Pierre addressed the potential impact of presenting information which seemingly highlights issues of crime on Ireland.
What we are doing when we promote these things and when our headlines show this murder and that murder, what we do is we give the foreign press fuel. We fuel them, Mr. Speaker. Now, when we give them fuel, it means that our tourism will get affected.
In a separate comment issued in Parliament on Tuesday, Mr. Pierre further stressed the perceived obstacles created by such action. Julius Gittins is described as a media and communication specialist with over 30 years' experience as an award-winning broadcaster, journalist, producer, and trainer. He responded to questions on whether the role of media in communicating factual events is understood.
The role of journalism in any democracy is to report on current events, that which is news, and generally that which is unusual, different. It can contribute to the development of the country, and it can be a threat to the development of the country. That's not for us to judge. We know what is in the public interest. The public has a right to know, and that's basically how we measure it.
Gittins further highlighted information which needs to be communicated to the public.
Does the public have a right to know that someone was murdered? Does the public have a right to know generally the circumstances, the location, the time of the occurrence of the homicide, and that sort of thing? The media also have a responsibility to report on trends. Is there a rise in violent crime? We are seeing overall crime trending downward in many Caribbean countries and also further north. But there's also been a steady rise in violent crime, particularly gun crime.
According to the media professional, such events have invited concern in his homeland, Barbados, and should invite similar sentiment within the Eastern Caribbean.
But a lot of people are being shot and killed. Why is that? And I think we need to also look at where there are solutions, wherever they may be, and take those questions to the policymakers, to the police, to the Minister for Justice and National Security. What is the country's response?
Public discomfort has driven calls for change.
What often happens, though, is that there is a tendency, because the picture is not a very pretty picture that is presented of violence and so on, to sort of blame the messenger. Now, I'm not making an accusation against any particular political figure. That just happens to be what often happens in our Caribbean societies. We have a problem with crime. So the first thing that we say to the media is, don't report so much of the crime.
According to Gittins, the line which should be drawn is how the material is presented. Reporting on violence to tell the story and not for its own sake, he says, is key.
The day that we stop putting murders on the front page in the Caribbean is the day that we become so numbed to the occurrence of gun violence because it is news. It is nothing new. And that's my concern, that we become so used to this spilling of blood, which really, when you look at it, should be something that still shocks, should be something that still catches our attention and takes our breath away. Because it is something that we should not be expecting every single week, every single day. And the day that that becomes so much the part of the norm, then the issue is no longer the reporter or the journalism or the media. The issues are society.